this lesson is on function composition. Okay, this is our note 6.4, and it's called function composition. Now, composition is just another way to combine functions. So it's a new mathematical operation that you can do with functions. Okay, so it's not adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. It's its own operation. Okay, and so let's talk about what composition means, and then I'll show you the notation for it. So composition of two functions means put one function into another function in place of x. So instead of like putting a number in place of x, we're putting another function in place of x. Then simplify. Okay, so composition of two functions means you're going to put one function into another function in place of x, and then you're going to simplify. Okay, now the notation that you're going to need to be able to recognize, there's two different forms of it, just like there was for adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. All right, and here they are. And then I'm actually going to write down how to say it in words, just so you can remember that as well. Okay, so f of g of x. All right, so that's f of g of x. And what it actually means is it means put g of x into f of x in place of x. Okay? All right, now another notation that means exactly the same thing looks like this. F, and then it's a circle. It's not a dot, and it's not a full-size O. It's a circle. F, O, G. F, and it's not really an O. Let me make it a little bit smaller. Whoa. All right, and the symbol is actually, that's the composition symbol. So F, O, G, or F circle G, and you read it F composed with G. And then, of course, I guess that would go, then there would be like an X. So F composed with G of X. And it means exactly the same thing. It means put G into F in place of X. All right, so it's not going to make a lot of sense till you actually see some functions here. Okay, so let's get right into our examples here. Okay, so I've got to give you some functions. So let's say, let's give you f of x equals 2x. Start with some fairly basic functions. And g of x equals x plus 1. All right, and I want you to find, okay, f of g of x. Okay, now what that means is it literally means like this function, this g of x function is going inside, like that's kind of what these parentheses mean. It's going inside the f function in place of x. All right, so I'm going to draw some, I'm going to kind of draw, it's easier to, I don't know, circle stuff and draw arrows, I think, the first time you're learning it. All right, so here is my g of x. And what we want to do is we want to bring it over here, and we want to put it into the f of x function in place of x. Okay? So we're putting it in place of x, but notice it is next to a 2. So that 2 has to stay there. And then instead of writing 2x, instead of writing 2 times x, I'm going to write 2 times. And then I'm going to plug in the x plus 1 function, the function of x plus 1. And then I do whatever simplifying is necessary, which would just be a distribution here. And then this is my answer. Okay? Now, I know it might seem weird at first because you've never done it before. But just bear with me. We're going to practice a couple. Okay? Now, what if I put the g first? G of f of x. Okay? Well, that would mean put the f function into the g function in place of x. So I'm just going to change my colors because I don't want to have to erase all this. All right, but here's the f function, the whole thing, and I want to put it into the g function in place of x. So instead of x plus 1, I'm going to put 2x in place of the x and then add 1. And on that one, there's no simplifying needed. I'm actually done. Okay, so whichever one comes second, you're going to put into the first one. Okay, in place of x. All right, let me give you some new functions. Let me change it up, give you a new f and g. All right, let's bump it up a little bit. All right, let's say f of x was equal to x squared plus 1, and g of x was equal to x minus 2. Okay? All right, and the first thing I want you to find is, and I'm going to use my other notation, g of f, g composed with f of x. All right, so you've got to remember that whichever one comes second, you're going to put into the first one. Okay, and so that means that we're going to take f of x and put it into g of x in place of x. So instead of x minus 2, we're putting the entire x squared plus 1 in place of x and then subtracting 2. All right, and that one's not too hard to simplify. Okay. All right, let's go the other way. Let's do f composed with g of x. Again, that means take the second one, and put it into the first one. So I'm going to take g of x, and I'm going to put it into f of x in place of x. Just be careful, there's a square. So when I return the x into x minus 2, but then there's a square outside here, I have to square everything I just plugged in before I can add 1. And the way you simplify that is remembering that anything squared is that thing times itself. Then you'd have to keep your plus 1. Then you would FOIL. Then you would combine like terms. And that is your final answer. Okay, so sometimes the work is pretty quick and easy, but other times it does require a little bit of extra effort. Okay. All right, let's start a new page. And I've got one more set here. And I'm actually going to do several things with it because I'm going to give you more than 2 functions. All right, so let's look at f of x equals x squared plus 8. G of x equals x minus 1. And h of x equals 5x minus 3. Okay, and I want you to start by finding f of g of x. Now, I do encourage you to pause this and try it on your own before you listen to what I'm going to say. All right, so hopefully you've paused it and you're rejoining me. And here we go. I'm going to take G and I'm going to put it into F. So I'm going to take G and I'm going to put it into F in place of X. But F says the X is squared, so I have to square the X minus 1 that I just put in there, plus 8. Okay? And so this is another one where you have to actually simplify it by squaring this binomial out, writing it twice, and foiling. Take the time to FOIL. Oh, I got ahead of myself. All right, and then combine like terms. Okay? All right, let's look at, how about just kind of change the notation up along the way. Kind of looks like hog, but it's H composed with G of X. H composed with G of X. All right, let's remember what that means. The second one goes into the first one. So G is going into H in place of X. So we keep the 5, but instead of X, we're going to put X minus 1, and then we're going to keep the minus 3. And since the 5 was connected to the X by multiplication, it has to be connected to the X minus 1 by multiplication. So I'm going to distribute the 5 there, bring down the minus 3, and add like terms. Okay? Hopefully you're starting to get the hang of it. Let's look at G of F of X. All right, so again, you might want to pause it and try it on your own. Make sure you understand that this means you're going to take F of X and you're going to put it into G. So we're taking F of X and we're putting it into G in place of X. And then don't forget there's a minus 1 after the X. And then I combine like terms, and that one was pretty easy. Okay. All right. Let me write a couple more down, and then just so, well, nope, hold on. Lost track of what I was doing. Here we go. All right, how about F composed with H of X? Okay, F composed with H. So that means I'm going to take H, I'm going to bring it all the way over here to F and put it in place of X. But the X is squared and there's a plus 8 afterwards. All right, well, that's kind of like number 5 where we have something squared, so we're going to have to write it twice and FOIL it out, and then of course we can't forget our plus 8. So first, outer, inner, last, don't forget the plus 8, and then combine like terms. That was a big one. Okay, now the next two, I'm going to put a number. All right, so instead of saying G of H of X, I'm going to say G of H of 2. I'm going to go ahead and write number 10 as well. Let's do H composed with F, but then I'm going to put a negative 6. Okay, so this is a little different from when you're adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. You don't actually plug the number into both functions and then try to compose them, because if they're both numbers, you can't really put one into the other. There's no X left over. So the way these work is that you work from the inside out, or you can think of it as from right to left, where you're actually going to work this out. So you're going to put 2 into H, get an answer, and then put that answer into G. Okay, so let me slide up so I can see my functions again. All right, so here's what I'm saying. I'm saying I've got to figure out what H of 2 is first. Okay, so I'm going to plug 2 in for X. 5 times 2 is 10, and 10 minus 3 is 7. Then I'm going to take that answer and put it into G. So I'm really just finding G of 7. Okay? And G was X minus 1, so this is 7 minus 1, which is 6. And 6, that second answer, is my final answer. Okay, so listen to that carefully again. I put 2 into the H function first. Then I put the answer to that into the G function. Okay? All right, so number 10 is the other notation, but you do it the same way. You basically work from the inside out, or you can think of it as working from right to left. So you're going to put the -6 into the F first. Then you're going to get an answer for that, which was, let's see, x squared plus 8. Okay, so that's -6 squared plus 8. 36 plus 8 is 44. So you're going to get an answer for that. And then you're going to put that answer into the H function. Okay? And the H function was 5x plus 3. So we're going to do 5 times 44. Excuse me. Is it plus 3 or minus 3? Oh, it's minus 3. Okay, I almost messed up again. All right, and that ends up being 217, and that 217, that second answer, is your final answer. Okay, and so you might want to go back and re-listen to those last two, especially with the numbers. All right, but function composition, 2 functions composed with one another, literally means put one function into another function in place of X. Okay? Now, those two notes 6.3 and 6.4 are combined on one homework assignment, homework 6.3-6.4 in Canvas. Don't forget to submit photos of your work when you're finished.